Hello all, I'm back. This is video number 8. We're taking a look at Ephesians chapter 3 verses 8 through 13 today. And I want to thank you so much for joining me in these short videos. I hope they're helpful to you. Now, in this section, Paul is discussing his role as servant and steward of the mystery of God. He calls himself the least of all the saints, but he understands that God has graced him way beyond what he deserved by giving him a very special role. God's grace was given to him for 3 purposes. First, to preach to the Gentiles the boundless riches of Christ. That's verse 8. Second, to make all men see what was the plan of the mystery, hidden for ages in God. Verse 9. And third, to make the wisdom of God known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms, or the celestial realms, verse 10. Paul wanted everyone to know the secret hidden in God, but now made known, that the Gentiles are accepted by God as equals with Jewish believers. And how is the wisdom of God made known? Well, that's verse 10. Through the church. While the universe presents ample evidence of the wisdom of God, the church of the new creation is the masterpiece of his wisdom. That's chapter 2, verse 10, isn't it? This was all according to God's eternal purpose. Verse 11. God's eternal purpose. What does this mean? It means that God planned the church to be a part of his grand design from the very beginning. It also means that we who by faith are united with Christ are caught up in a divine purpose which spans eternity, the purpose of the ages. Now take a look at verse 12. According to that verse, we have access to the Father through Christ, and our coming into the presence of God may be marked by boldness and the fullest confidence. Let those words sink in a bit. We have access to God through Jesus Christ our Lord, and we can now come before God's throne with boldness and confidence. What a statement. Now take a quick look at verse 13. Paul's friends and converts might be tempted to think that if Paul were really in the path of God's will, he would not have so many trials to endure. So Paul tries to convey to them his own assurance that his sufferings are the direct consequence of his obedience to God's eternal purpose. That purpose includes his taking the gospel to the Gentiles. So any suffering that Paul experiences for doing so is suffering for them, his Gentile readers. Now, if Paul's readers can appreciate this, far from finding a reason to be discouraged by his sufferings, they will glory in them, as Paul himself had learned to do. For they would see in those very sufferings the proof that God's purpose was advancing. So, what does this text do? Probably many things, but I just want to mention a couple of things. First of all, it may change our perspective toward the church. The church, the community of faith, is exalted, noble. It's a vital part of God's plan since the creation of the world. And secondly, this text may change our perspective towards suffering. If trials and hardships that we experience only serve to further God's plan and cause, then I say bring them on. What do you say? In our next section, Paul will conclude the prayer that he began at chapter 1 and verse 17. And what a prayer it is. Oh, if only we took the prayers of Paul to heart, right? Right. I'll see you in a few days. God bless.